Esther from the Bible. Esther lost her mother, Esther lost her father, Esther had her uncle Mordecai. Esther lost her mother, Esther lost her father, Esther had her uncle Mordecai. And Mordecai took care of Esther, did more than his part, and Esther became a fine young woman with a wise and loving heart, with a wise and loving heart. And Esther was a Jew, Mordecai was too. Yes, Esther was a Jew, and Mordecai too. There was a king, there was a king, and the king was not a Jew. No, the king was not a Jew. And the king got rid of his first wife. The king got rid of his first wife. The king got rid of his first wife. Was looking for number two. He was looking for number two. And when the king saw Esther, when the king saw Esther, when the king saw Esther, he wanted her to be his wife. He wanted her to be his wife. And the king didn't know that Esther was an orphan. King didn't know that Esther was a Jew. The king didn't know that Esther was an orphan. King didn't know that Esther was a Jew. But Esther said yes. Esther said yes. I will be your queen. I will be the queen of Persia, the queen of Persia. Esther's the queen of Persia. Esther, the queen of Persia. The king had a right-hand man. The king had a right-hand man. The king had a right-hand man, and his name was Haman. Boo! Yes, his name was Haman. Boo, boo, boo! And Haman loved the power that he had, being the right-hand man, being the right-hand man. When Haman, boo, walked by, people would bow down. When Haman, boo, walked by, people would bow down. Now Mordecai was a guard. Mordecai was a guard. And when Haman, boo, walked by, Mordecai would not bow down. Mordecai would not bow down. And Haman was mad. Haman was mad. Mad as mad can be. But Mordecai would not bow down. Mordecai was a Jew, and the Jews will not bow down. The Jews will not bow down. They'll pray to God, but the Jews will not bow down. Not to a human man, not to a human man, a woman, not to one. And Haman, boo, went to the king. Haman, boo, went to the king. King, the Jews will not bow down. The Jews will not bow down. You better get rid of all the Jews. You better get rid of all the Jews. They are going to be trouble for you. You better get rid of the Jews. For the for you, those Jews. They're gonna be trouble for you. You better get rid of those Jews. You better get rid of those Jews. And the king said, I bet you're right. I'll make a law. A certain day coming up, we'll get rid of all the Jews. We'll get rid of all the Jews. And Haman, boo, smiled. Haman, boo, smiled. Haman, boo, smiled. We'll get rid of all the Jews. Mordecai went to Esther. Mordecai went to Esther. Esther, oh Esther, you've got to turn this around. You've got to turn this around. Go to the king. He is your husband. Go to the king. You've got to turn this around. You've got to turn this around. Esther said, I would, but you know the rules. The king is in his chambers, and no one can go there. No one can go there unless he asks you in, unless he calls you in. One can die if you go to the king when he hasn't asked you. The king is in his chambers. I could die if I go to the king when he didn't call me. That could be the end of me. End of me. And Mordecai said, well, 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 this could be the end of all the Jews. This could be the end of all the Jews. And Esther said, I will go. You know I'll go. Esther said, I will go. I will go to see the king. I will go to see the king. And Esther went to the king. What's he gonna do? Esther went to the king. What's he gonna do? And the king saw Esther. The king saw Esther. The king saw Esther. He loved her with all his heart. He said, what can I do for you, my queen? What can I do for you? Now remember, the king didn't know that Esther was an orphan. The king didn't know that Esther was a Jew. The king didn't know that Esther was an orphan. Didn't know that she's a Jew. And Esther said, my king, oh my king, you have done a terrible thing. This rule, this new law's no good. He said, what do you mean? What do you mean? The law's getting rid of all the Jews. Oh king, you should know. Law says get rid of all the Jews. Well, I'm a Jew too. I'm a Jew too. And if you get rid of all the Jews, you'll get rid of me too. You've got to turn this around, my king. Turn this around. The king loved Esther. The king loved Esther. He looked at Esther and he said, let's turn this around. Let's turn this around.